Does Saquon Barkley have a real chance of beating out Lamar Jackson for the MVP? Does this game on Sunday help? We'll get into it coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We are brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Eagles-Ravens this Sunday. I think the game of the week, Lamar Jackson against Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley against Derrick Henry. And Gino, crazy enough, I would say two of the top 3 or 4 favorites to win MVP are in this matchup, in Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley. Saquon's having a historic year, as we know, and it's crazy that a running back is actually in the real conversation to win MVP. Do you believe, though, there is a real scenario where the voters will actually pick a running back, even to this historic level of what Saquon's doing this year, over a quarterback? Like, is that scenario real? Does that exist?
That's the thing that this award really has to figure out.
Yeah.
Is it just a quarterback award, or is it a
Right.
best player in the league award? And I firmly believe that Saquon has a legitimate chance to win Offensive Player of the Year rather than MVP.
I'm with you, yeah.
But with that being said, if Jalen Hurts continues to be the player that he or Saquon Barkley rather continues to be the player that he has
See, your
been,
brain even went to quarterback, Gino.
exactly, Lou. It's like if the Eagles end up getting the 1 seed, let's say, and they just look really good down the stretch and they win 5 out of their last 6, it would probably have to go to Jalen Hurts. And then Offensive Player of the Year, you can get into that discussion between King Henry and Saquon Barkley. Now, that's the real race to watch. I do not think there's a legitimate chance that a running back wins this award unless you're breaking these Eric Dickerson type of records and you're in all world when it comes to yards from scrimmage and you're breaking like 50, 60-year-old records.
I think that's the only
on a
way.
weekly basis. He has to do
He
that.
has to break Chris Johnson or Eric Dickerson's record.
Yeah,
but Gino,
exactly.
even like you said, and the Eagles have to get probably the 1 seed and beat out Detroit. Maybe not. But like you just said, you made a good point I didn't even think of. If they do that and Jalen Hurts has a strong finish, are they really going to give it to the running back over the quarterback of that team? I don't know. You make a good point there.
It would probably go to Lamar if Baltimore...
The numbers are crazy for Lamar.
Exactly. If Baltimore really is
Yeah.
the number 1 team in the AFC, which they should continue to push to be, it would be a battle between him and Josh Allen, of course.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, I don't think he's doing what he did in 2022 when it comes to numbers. Efficiency, much better. Definitely not in the conversation like I think he was last year in that stretch, in those first 11 games. And I was talking about, and you as well, why the Eagles were winning those games was because Jalen Hurts was doing the things that Saquon Barkley is doing now, where he was carrying the team on his back. Look at that Buffalo game. That was a nuclear second half, 5 touchdowns in 1 half against Buffalo. He's not doing that this year. But no disrespect to him. You have Saquon Barkley, who is paid, tasked to do that. If Devontae Smith doesn't play this week, it probably favors Saquon Barkley statistically to get more touches, to get more yards, help his push towards the MVP potentially. I would say firmly, and FanDuel has the odds, as he is the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year. He's second for MVP right now. I would find it hard for the NFL to say running back is the most valuable.
And
play. It might just be the most valuable position.
And if
is
it didn't
the
happen
award.
last year, Gino, with Christian McCaffrey over quarterbacks that weren't really that impressive when Jalen Hurts fell off, when Lamar won it and he was unanimous, I don't know. I mean, like, that was one of the weaker MVP classes, and running back didn't get it then. So maybe if Saquon was doing what he's doing this year, last year, he would have won the MVP award, but Lamar's numbers are really good. Josh Allen's taken a team to a 9-2 record. They beat Mahomes and the undefeated Chiefs with a lot of talent lost from last year's Bills team. And it is a quarterback award. So I'm with you. I think he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year if he can, outduel Derrick Henry the rest of the way. But I would probably say there's only really one scenario where it plays out, and it's like you said. If he breaks one or both of Chris Johnson's all-time scrimmage yard record, Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing yard record, and or like Lamar, if he doesn't win the division, I don't remember the last time a quarterback's won the MVP award with a wild card team, and maybe Allen just kind of stalls out at the end, which I can't really see. Like that's the one scenario if Saquon breaks those records, and Allen or Lamar kind of flame out a little, cool off at the end. But even then, I'll believe it when I see it. It would be an incredible story to see a running back win it in 2024.
Right now over at FanDuel, Lou, you can actually bet on if you believe Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley can break the single-season rushing record of 2,106 yards. Derrick Henry's at plus 2,500. Yeah. Saquon Barkley plus 400. I think Vegas firmly believes he has a legitimate chance to break that if the Eagles' offensive line continues to do the things that they do. And one of the things that might help Saquon is that Detroit keeps winning these football games. Chicago just crapped down their pants yesterday at the end there, had a chance to legitimately push to win that football game, one of the all-time worst clock management decisions you'll ever see. So it's in the Eagles' hands. You can't rely on other football teams. If they're playing important football in week 17 and 18, Saquon Barkley, that's where he's going to win the MVP, Lou. If he has to win those games for them to have a chance to win the 1 seed, and then they end up doing that, and he's breaking the it has to be a perfect trio of breaking the records, ending up getting the 1 seed.
And Lamar and Allen don't.
Yes,
really
Lamar and Allen phase out, and Jalen doesn't steal a lot of the touchdowns, which he has done in the first half here.
Yeah, and then he could win it because the award, when you think about it, it really doesn't have an actual criteria or a process for the winners. It feels like the logic every single year is completely different. Like I know it's supposed to be a regular season award, but I bet this committee would say, do we want to give it to Lamar for a third time when he hasn't done much in the postseason? Like, are they going to get voter fatigue? Kind of like
if they give it to a guy who doesn't win his division, I
don't think they will.
That's unprecedented.
I don't think they will. I think in that scenario, Allen probably gets it. But yeah, if neither one, like let's say the Bills fall to like the 3 or 4 seed and he's okay down the stretch, then yeah, maybe it is Saquon. But it would, like you said, just really have to be the perfect storm. If I had a vote, Gino, I probably would give it to one of the quarterbacks because I use this award. I take it literally by the name of it. Like I really go by value. If you remove that player from the situation, how much does that impact the team? Like what's the production, like the replacement level, right? And I think that's probably why I'd vote Allen, because you take him away from that Buffalo Bills team, they're not even close to a 9-2 football team. So that's the way I take it very literally. That's the process I would have. And if that's part of their process, I think they might say, yes, Saquon's taking this rushing attack to a historic level, but over the last few years, this Eagles team still was consistently elite at running the football. So,
and that's the thing with Allen, right? Where you can make that case. If you take Lamar away from Baltimore, Henry's still going to do really good numbers-wise, and you could look at what he did with the Giants over the last couple of years, or not with the Giants, with Tennessee, with a really bad offensive line, still put up really good numbers. You could look at Saquon, the same type of situation. If you take away the quarterback there and Jalen Hurts, does he do really good things? Of course. But I don't think they get anywhere near those numbers without those guys on the football field, to where Josh Allen quite literally is the Buffalo football team right now. They don't have a number 1 receiver. It's because Josh Allen can just pinpoint accurately throw touchdown passes. And if he can't do that, he's going to go Hulk mode and just take over a football game. There's a lot of balance with Baltimore and Philadelphia, in my opinion. Like, you need both of those guys. It's not Josh and James Cook. It's like, Ray Davis is still really good as long as Josh Allen's in the football game. Khalil Shakur is really good as long as Josh Allen is still in the football game. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you could probably get by with Kenny Pickett to a degree, but I don't know. Those guys, they help out a lot, and I just firmly believe you have to give it to a quarterback, probably give it to the best quarterback in football for the best team. Patrick Mahomes always is going to be in the conversation regardless, because of what he has done. He gets that Tom Brady, like,
I was very curious.
Legacy of vote all the time.
If they continue to win and stay undefeated, but Mahomes'
he's gonna win. If they're like 16-1, he's gonna win it.
You think so? Even that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Like, what if before they lost to the Bills, I was saying to myself, if they go undefeated in this very weird way where they're winning games close and Mahomes' numbers don't look great, would they still give it to him? I think they probably would.
If they get the 1 seed, I believe so, because
Mahomes,
that means
you can't take Mahomes out of the equation. You're right. Yeah.
But then at the end, it's the ultimate
bad.
trump card that Josh beat him in that one.
Yeah,
game.
that's a good point. If the Bills get the 1 seed, but this is my problem with the award itself. It's just like there really is no criteria to it, and I don't know. It just changes every year. It feels like what the committee decides is worth. This award. Sometimes it's like sexy stats. Sometimes it's storyline. Sometimes it's just who's up. Like, whose turn is it? Allen hasn't had one yet. We should give it to him. So that's the one thing that does bother me about it. And even you look at comeback player of the year with the weird stuff with Flacco and Hamlin last year. I don't know. The awards, I wish they went about it in a more stricter way. But
Brandon Graham, one of the all-time, should have won the award, but didn't win the award.
Should have absolutely won comeback player of the year.
Comes back off an Achilles injury at his age.
Double-digit sacks for the first time in his career.
If he comes back next year and does what 16, he did in that year,
player of the year,
he has to win it. Just
awesome.
Because he's been playing for nearly 2 decades. But all in all, Lou, I think having these conversations is where you want to be as a football team. To have multiple guys on your football team in back-to-back seasons over the last 3 years.
Having Eagles in the MVP conversation. That's awesome.
And you need that to compete because we look at, 2017 with Carson, right? He was awarded that stupid NFL top 100 they do every year. He was a top 5 player voted on by his peers. Sometimes those guys kind of understand what's going on in football, and Lamar is continually put in that tier, and then Josh is always put in that tier. Saquon, Henry, Jalen, those are top 25 football players in the National Football League all day long. And to have 2 of them, and you could throw A.J. Brown in there if he's fully healthy through a season, his numbers would probably be worthy of Offensive Player of the Year as well, Lou. This is a great problem to have.
I think so, too. An Eagles running back is an MVP finalist, and they're going to need him on Sunday against Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Baltimore Ravens. You might need Jalen Hurts to throw the ball as well, though, in this game to keep up. LOE3 coming up next, some player prop bets. We're going to bet on the passing game, the running game, both. We'll get into it coming up right here on Locked On Eagles. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, but not just games for the Philadelphia Eagles at the link. Concerts, comedy, theater, and more. On top of the great price, you can make sure you're getting a great view, get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. They've got their lowest price guarantee. If you find prices lower on another platform, they will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase of tickets. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Time now for LOE3, presented by FanDuel. Every single Friday, Gino and I, we both take 3 player prop bets each for the upcoming matchup for the Birds. This time it's in Baltimore against a red-hot Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and a Ravens team that's in a dogfight right now for that AFC North crown with the weird Pittsburgh Steelers. Just this is what they do every single year,
dude. They're the Vikings of the AFC right
They really
now.
are, and they're like this every single year. So this is an important game for the Ravens and the Eagles. As Gino mentioned earlier, the Detroit Lions did win a weird game on Thanksgiving. Part of that thanks to Gino, one of the most ridiculous final 30 seconds of a game I've ever seen, which got Eberflus fired today, by the way.
Yeah, Black Friday for Matt Eberflus, man. They cut him loose because...
Would have been nice if he beat the Lions for the Eagles, man.
We could have at least had a chance in overtime to see them slip up, but Matt Eberflus with 30-some-odd seconds left on the clock to take you through it if you didn't see this game. No timeouts. Caleb Williams ends up taking a sack, which in that situation, when you're down, you're in field goal range already, QB 101, you throw the ball away. So they get up to the line, and with about 13 seconds left, they have the chance with everybody set to call a play. Instead, they take this thing all the way down to about 2 seconds. Caleb Williams throws a horrible out corner route. Time expires, and they did still have a timeout in the back of their pocket.
They did, man.
Yes,
And
that's where I
Caleb
messed up. They
Caleb
could have thrown it
clearly-
over the middle, called a timeout, been in field goal range, at least lived to see another
Yeah.
day in overtime. Instead, Matt Eberflus, see you never. He's
How do
probably
you
going
not
to end
call
up somewhere
timeout
else as a
there? Like,
coordinator.
Caleb clearly did not have any sort of urgency and didn't understand the situation. Eberflus said at the press conference after that he liked the way they went about that. Once it's below 12 seconds, we got to snap the play. But it's like, okay, what about the other 20 seconds that burned when you realize your rookie quarterback didn't understand the situation? Why didn't you call timeout there? Insane. But
makes you appreciate Nick Sirianni a lot more.
I think
than we do
yesterday
sometimes.
entirely, Gino, made me appreciate the Eagles more. And Jalen Hurts. You don't really know good quarterback play until you watch really bad quarterback play. I was watching Drew Lock and Cooper Rush in that second game, and I'm like, it could be really, really bad.
Could always be worse,
It
man.
could
We
always
always
be
think
worse.
things are
Oof.
bad, but then you're like, oh, somebody else's problems, they seem a lot worse than
Yeah.
mine. I'll take those.
But again, because of that loss for Chicago, the Lions are now 11-1. The Eagles got to keep up in that race for the 1 seed, hopefully get to 10-2 against Baltimore. How do they do it? Do they throw the football? Do they run the football? We're going to play some money on the Eagles offense. Again, LOE3 presented by FanDuel. Gino, let's take a look at our bets. We both started with an over on Jalen Hurts' passing yards. I took the over on the 250-plus line, which is at plus 174. You took the over on his total yards, I should say, at 265.5, both passing and rushing yards at minus 114. I think overall, this is going to have to be a Jalen Hurts game where he goes toe-to-toe with another MVP candidate, elite quarterback, like he did earlier this year against Joe Burrow. I think that's the kind of game they need out of Jalen today, even if they do continue to have success on the ground. But that's a good Ravens front seven, so he's going to have to throw the football and, as your bet's showing, make plays with his legs.
268.5 yards. If you're talking about an MVP caliber performance going up against another quarterback that is perennially in that conversation, I go back to those games last year, Lou, where he was really good in those stretches against Pat Mahomes, against Josh Allen. When there's somebody on the other side of the ball that it's like a gladiator fight, it's him and the other guy, he really steps up to the plate, man.
Good point.
I expect him, with or without Devontae Smith, who is questionable for the game, did practice today, which is really good. Hopefully he does come back healthy for this game. Regardless, Jalen is going to air this thing out. I think he's going to make some big-time throws, and I think he's going to have one or two wild plays with his legs where you're like, okay, Lamar did something nuts. Well, then there's Jalen who shows up, and it's like he drags three guys to the ground to get a first down, and you're saying, yeah, that's
I can't wait for
our
this game.
MVP.
I can't wait.
This is a Lou
most exciting
DiBiase
quarterbacks. Oh, yeah.
just fan fiction.
I know.
If you could write it, this is what he wants to see football-wise.
This is my brand of football for sure.
Yep.
And yeah, Gino, when you think about it, like Jalen, every time he's played a star quarterback this year, a really good one, close to his tier, higher, maybe just a little bit lower, he's won that battle. He was better than Jordan Love week 1. He was better than Joe Burrow. I thought he was better than Matt Stafford last week, even though the numbers weren't super sexy. I think in the 3 battles this year where he was going up against a good quarterback to his level, if not higher, I think he was the better player.
Don't love losing to Kirk Cousins, but I won't put that on Jalen.
Yeah, and I think Jalen was better than Kirk in that game. So, no, I'm with you. I took the over as well for the passing yards, 250 plus. Keep in mind, the Baltimore Ravens, like, this isn't your dad or even your older brother's Ravens defense, Gino. You can throw on them. Like, the secondary, Marlon Humphrey's having a good year, and Nate Wiggins has been solid his rookie year, but their safety play's been bad. Marcus Williams got benched. Kyle Hamilton's been up and down. Like, you can push the ball on this team.
I really like the matchup if you get A.J. Brown on a guy like Wiggins who's a little bit undersized. It's like that's the matchup you want to take advantage of. At the same time, though, Lou, you said it. This isn't your father's or your grandfather's Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North. There's a reason why Pittsburgh is in first place is because their defense is playing like a typical Pittsburgh defense, creating opportune turnovers. You're not getting that from Baltimore right now.
That's why Baltimore's had some weird losses this year. Like they look like the best team in football at times, and then they lose to Denver because the defense just can't stop anybody.
They're the ultimate play with your play with your food team.
Yeah,
Like you will be in a game, no matter what, you're not going to get blown out by this team. It's going to be down to the wire regardless. And for Philadelphia, I think being a 3-point dog on the road in a game that is really big, good situation to be in, but Vegas thinks it's going to be close. Baltimore's the team that's going to keep it close. And I think the defensive backs, you're just 1 or 2 opportunities away from creating this thing and making it a shootout.
I agree. And that's why our second bet for me was A.J. Brown, anytime touchdown score plus 130. I think he's going to have success against this Ravens secondary. Gino, your second bet was Saquon Barkley, the over on his total yardage, rushing and receiving being over 150. That's at plus 270. And this is a good battle for Saquon, again, to get in that MVP race and try to beat out Lamar and to beat out Derrick Henry. He's going to have a big game, I think, through the air and on the ground.
Should have bucked up and went with the plus 150 last time because that was the easiest game to get it in, man. Like we could have bet 200 all-purpose yards. I did.
Segment,
I did.
Right?
I was hesitant to go from 125 to 150. And boy, do I look like a dummy after that.
He's like, I'm going to go for double that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm going to go for the one that's like plus 6,000 odd. But another game where Saquon Barkley keeps it going. And I know that Baltimore has a good front, but at the same time, this is a pass to open up the run game. Yeah, they might not start hot in the run game, but I think Saquon in the second half starts to take over after they hit couple big shots to AJ, couple big shots to Devontae. Then they have to respect the pass, and then boom, they go light boxes. Saquon Barkley can run against an 8-man box anyway, so take your money and run it with Saquon Barkley, literally.
And then your third and final bet was also for Saquon Barkley, an over on half, 0.5 receiving yards in the first quarter. So you're banking on him getting a catch in the first. I like this bet. This is interesting.
Now, one check down. Come on, like that's all we need is one check down.
That's
here.
at plus 130.
Early on in the games too is typically when Jalen likes to find Saquon, and I think they set him up with maybe a screen early on in this game too. He's going to get at least 3 targets per quarter at this rate, even especially if Devontae Smith doesn't play. That's when he's going
limited,
to get the surplus.
Yeah, we'll see how the hamstring looks in the game too.
I still like my odds with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah,
half a yard. That almost seems like a bonus pick that they're trying to present to you to get FanDuel customers to sign up, man. That's too good to be true.
Take advantage of those promotion ones. My final bet is Dallas Goedert, the over on 47.5 receiving yards at minus 114. It's kind of disappointing, Gino, that Goddard has continued to be quiet since he returned from injury. I thought he had a solid game a couple weeks ago against Washington. Outside of that fumble on the big play, like he had a good game, but after that Saints game before the bye week, you're like the Dallas Goedert breakout. Like he looks like the stud we saw a few years ago. And then the hamstring injury kept him out for a few weeks. And since he's come back, I just don't know if Kellen Moore, if it's Jalen Hurts. The offense as a whole has just struggled to get him involved consistently and get him back in a rhythm with the passing attack. The passing game's been up and down, so that's part of it. But I do hope they get Goddard more involved more consistently.
Probably see a fair amount of matchups with him and Kyle Hamilton going at it.
Yeah, that's going to be a good battle.
Goddard needs to get involved more. And
they need him to.
You said it, man. Like, you thought the breakout was happening, and then it's back to earth with him, who he's a special player at times. He really has shown that. And I think a lot of people are holding on to the idea of him and what he could be. But at worst, he's got to be a 60-yard player.
Yeah.
Every game. He has to be. Because that means he's reliable for 4 to 5 targets, a couple first downs that he's picking up. That fumble really hurt in terms of like ball security and trusting him in those situations. But who else is it going to be? You don't have that big-bodied man beater in the middle of the field outside A.J. Brown. Like, as much as we love Devontae, that's just not his game. If you want to go rack over the middle, get Dallas Goedert involved more. He was really good in those areas in tight end screens, which seemed to be the only form of screens that worked over the last couple of years.
True.
He can't just not be able to do that anymore, especially with the way that the offensive line is blocking. We got to find a way to get him involved. I just think it's a lack of effort wanting to get him involved.
Yeah, because it's going to take more because Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore just naturally don't dial things up over the middle, and that's where Dallas lives a lot of the time. You have to make a more conceited effort to get him the ball, right? I think it's not going to happen as smooth and just fluently during the play as it will to an A.J. Brown or a Devontae Smith or even a check down to Saquon Barkley. So you have to make more of an effort to get him the ball, and he's such a dynamic player that can do things that nobody else on this team can at the tight end position that, yeah, I definitely want to see him get the ball. So maybe that was more of a heart pick than a head pick because the matchup's not great, and it's been up and down this season with Dallas, but 47.5, like I would like to hope he can hit that mark, especially with Devontae Smith.
I'm with you.
Not at 100%. LOE 3 presented by FanDuel. Coming up next, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles, getting to some underrated 2024 storylines. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
LOE3 and this entire episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you're watching a game and it's the middle of the game and you're saying, I think so-and-so is going to get hot. Well, if it's A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, heck, if you want to ride with somebody on the other team, heck, if the Eagles aren't even playing, just make sure the one place that you go to check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, is also the same place where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, we're wrapping up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles, getting you ready for Eagles-Ravens this Sunday in Baltimore at 4:25. I think the game of the week between Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts, again, probably going to have to throw the ball in this game to go toe-to-toe with Lamar to get to 10-2. And it's interesting, Gino, I had a good question from one of our listeners on our YouTube community page, and it had to do with just like underrated things that we've noticed about this season that maybe isn't getting talked about enough. And one thing about Jalen Hurts specifically that I've noticed, and I've mentioned it on the show a few times, but this week I went back and watched some more of, Jalen's games this year, just some of the tape, and he is throwing the ball so well on the move. I don't think he's getting enough credit for that. And why I really like that is you're getting that explosive element of Jalen that makes him who he is. Like, that's why you pay this kind of player. You're getting the legs, right? Him extending plays, making them outside of structure, making guys miss when there's pressure. But I feel like he's taking less of a beating because in past years or even at times early in the season, when there's pressure, when he's on the move, he'll drop his eyes and just try to take off and get what kind of yards he can. But I feel like lately, especially over the last month or since the bye week, he's done such a good job when he's outside of the numbers of keeping his eyes up. And he's creating bigger plays with his legs through the air and even across his body. Like, normally that's not a throw that he makes really well. He's more of a stiff passer. Like, he's not a Lamar that throws from all these different angles. And so it's harder for him, I think, to throw across body, even to the left side of the field. Like, he's been really accurate. That's an underrated part of his game this year that I've loved to see, that like evolution of him using his legs in a different way.
There was this quote in this old sitcom called Yes Dear, and it was about Donovan McNabb.
Yes, dear.
Dude, I loved that show.
What a
dude.
Interesting. I don't
but
think
the
many
one
people remember
character,
that sitcom.
I can't remember his name, but he was the brother who always wore the backwards hat. And he had this quote, and I'll never forget it. And he says, "Why does Donovan McNabb throw better on the run? Nobody is ever going to know." And I think it's starting to get to that point with Jalen Hurts, that the guy gets off platform and across his body, he's doing like point guard-esque things where he's just waiting for the defender to get their eyes to him and then waiting for his buddy to pop out for the corner three like a point guard.
That throw to Saquon last week is the perfect example of that.
Or the couple to A.J. Brown where you're like, why is he turning his body like that, where you know he's going to throw it across the middle of the field when he's rolling to his left? And you're like, oh, because A.J. Brown is quite literally wide open, and Jalen Hurts is an athlete who can do that. We're getting to the territory of why can Jalen Hurts throw better on the move than in the pocket.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Lou, I think a lot of it has to do with the conceded effort that Kellen Moore has made to change the platform for him. Because a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, when he scrambles, like I see it, like these Donovan McNabb, these Michael Vick type of throws.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned a throw 2 weeks ago where it's bootleg play action. They move him out to the right just so they can move the pocket a little bit, move Jalen Hurts to get him away from the edge rushers and just allow him a little bit more connection downfield with this
and in
guy.
that way, he's getting more used to moving on the and throwing on the run. Yeah.
And then you can help him out in those different areas when he does get on the move outside of structure. Hey, we practice this thing during the week. When I do get myself off platform in rhythm, well, I know these launch points. I've done this during the week. If I can do it on schedule, I can do it off structure, man. Like that, you have to practice those things week in and week out for them to come easy in a game. When he's doing that as a younger player in his first year as a quarterback, he's just like, okay, he's trying to make something happen. He legitimately knows what he is doing in those different sequences. This isn't just something that, he does it and he's like scratching his head. How did that just come to be?
He's not getting like tunnel vision or this like hyper. I think sometimes, Gino, like when a guy's on the run, it's just like this like almost panicky vibe. But I think the game is slowed down for him in a way where when he's on the move, like he's still processing things mentally in a great way where it allows him to still be like, oh, hold on, maybe there is a bigger play here if I don't take off. But you're right. I think Kellen Moore, since the bye, implementing more like manufactured looks where he's moving has helped him just naturally feel more comfortable with that kind of process. So then when the play breaks down and he's doing an improv, I think that's making him more comfortable saying, wait, no, I can throw the football here. And in fact, I can see the field better than I do from inside the pocket.
That's a legitimate thing, man. No way you're actually seeing throwing lanes behind 6'8" offensive linemen.
Not unless you're a Josh Allen sized quarterback.
You got to be Brock Osweiler, right?
You
so
have to be.
Getting a guy like Jalen who's a little bit undersized, he can see things develop a little bit more. He knows that he's going to be drawing players his way.
Maybe that'll help him throw over the middle more too.
Kellen Moore realizing that if he manufactures looks for the defense, get them in those scenarios, I think it all kind of gels because then it goes hand in hand. Like Jalen knows, I've done this earlier. Defense have seen this. They might be a little bit more instinctual to kind of go his way a little bit. And then all of a sudden, things that were off script, well, we've practiced the scramble drill time and time again. I have this unbelievable relationship with A.J. Brown and Saquon and Devontae Smith that whenever I break one way that they know how to react off of leverage off of the defender. It's a culmination of many different things coming to be. One of the things we talked about years ago, Lou, was how Jalen Hurts coming into this offense, you're going to need young wide receivers for him to develop those timing things with. This is part of that.
Yeah,
these are some of the things that have developed over the year. Why can you trust that you're going to your left and once again, quarterback 101, never roll and throw back across your body? Well, if it's the A.J. Brown, somebody who I've been with for the last 3 years and I know that he's done it time and time again, you practice those things, you rep those things, and they just come to be in the middle of a game. They don't just happen. Those aren't things that just happen. You've seen quarterbacks tried to make magic with some bad receivers in Eagles history.
That's a good point.
Look at what Carson Wentz was doing towards the end of his tenure. He didn't have AJ and Devontae Smith to have that trusting relationship with. And when Michael Vick saw his guys get out of town, didn't have that either. Donovan McNabb, the same thing. You got to have that trusting relationship with those wide receivers at the same time. I know this was a long kind of drawn out soliloquy, but this is one of those things
it's fascinating.
That when you're breaking down quarterbacks, like, okay, this player looks like Jalen Hurts when it comes to his play, but why can't he do those things that Jalen does out of structure? Those are constant questions that are being asked of evaluators, because when you're in the coaching room, you're like, okay, I see this player. I see the idea of it, but we can't actually go out and do it. Well, there's only a certain amount of guys that can do these things. So you have to know what they're capable of. And Jalen just happens to be superhuman at times.
And again, it's keeping him healthy too. You're getting your cake and eating it too, where you're getting the benefit of the explosiveness with his legs extending plays, but he's not taking as much punishment. And that's something I actually even said before the bye I wanted to see more of. And I've loved that you are seeing Philadelphia, the coach and the quarterback, say, no, that's that is something that we want to tap into with our mobile quarterback. And I think it's taken this team to another level, and they're going to need that Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, a big matchup at 4:25 on Sunday. Gino and I will be back for the postgame show right after, hopefully recapping another win to make it, that'll be 8 straight to get to 10-2, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that'll be a big game, and we'll see you after the game. Everybody, thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen and watch each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.